So this video is a performance review of Death by Chocolate, a Zapkin Buskin murder mystery party written by Stefanie Austin and Kari Williamson. I went to the dress rehearsal. So normally in theater, you don't have audiences come to the dress rehearsal, but because these murder mystery parties are primarily interactive and they're all about engaging with audiences and responding to questions and things like that, it's actually really beneficial for the actors to have a live audience there for a dress rehearsal, because otherwise you don't get to practice the main thing that's involved in the show. So I went to that, and it's good. It's one of those things always where I think the murder mystery parties are very difficult as an actor, partially because so much of it is unscripted or semi-scripted, but they also just tend to have less rehearsal time than full-length productions. So I do have a critique of this performance, and I do think in many ways it is related to the specific nature of the murder mystery parties, which I've done and I've experienced to this issue. There definitely were a number of times in which there felt like dead space. Like one of the actors was supposed to be saying something and was not, and the other actors were waiting for that person, and then someone decided to jump in and rescue the situation. So that it did feel like there were gaps in it, but that's part of the reason we rehearse, including dress rehearsals, right? So hopefully for tonight, when they open, they will have sort of gotten some of those nerves out of their system, and they'll have, gone over their lines or whatever it is that they as individual performers or as a group need to do to get ready. So yeah, I mean, within the scripted parts, it felt like there were bits and pieces that were not as polished as they ideally would be. However, the audience interaction component, which again is the main element of a murder mystery party, was excellent. And I'm not surprised by that. There was one person, and I don't actually have a formal cast list, so the one person that I don't know is the one person I have never worked with in any capacity, but everybody else. No, one person I don't think I've worked with Ryan Gartland on anything in theater, but I've talked to him a number of times. I've seen him in other things, including a previous murder mystery party where I interacted with him as a character. So the guy who played Barney Mayhew Jr., the King of Cocoa, I don't know. I don't think I've met this person. I don't remember having seen him in anything. But everybody else in this show, I absolutely love as performers, as people to act with, as people who I've directed or worked on production staffs with, whatever it is, right? And they're all absolutely incredible. And so I am not at all surprised that they were excellent. So I'm going to basically go through them. They sent out one of the things that Zapkin Buskin does for the murder mystery parties is create clues. So they will print out various types of documents, usually like magazine or newspaper articles, text messages, emails, receipts, checks, things like that, right? So, and all of those things give you clues as to people's motives, their relationships, who did it, whatever it is, right? So I'll sort of go through this because they sent us ahead of time, the people who were coming as a dress rehearsal mock audience. They sent us a Chocolate World magazine Who's Who list, because the premise of Death by Chocolate is that Barney Mayhew Jr., the king of cocoa, is hosting a party for some of the biggest names in the local chocolate industry. So Mayhew is a dealer of cocoa. He was telling me during the party that his grandfather had started out actually harvesting cocoa, and then his father had started the business, and then he had taken it over and built it into this giant empire that controls the vast majority of cocoa distribution, including to the two main companies who had representatives at this party, the Capadellis and the Monteverys. So he's the host of the party, and his assistant, whose name is not listed on the thing, but if I remember correctly, her name was Becky, played by Lynn Theodos. Absolutely incredible. I've performed with her before. She's so much fun to work with, and she's so good at these things. Actually, she was one of the standouts at the last murder mystery party that Andy and I went to for Sock and Buskin, because she gets very detail oriented, very specific, and she develops comprehensive backstories and delivers them very intently during the interactions. So that's always a lot of fun. And I always like to try and sort of catch people out and just like ask them odd questions, things like that. And Lynn is really good at navigating that. So that was always fun. So the next person on this Who's Who list is Darcy Collins, played by Stefanie Austin, who I've worked with in various capacities on most of the Sock and Buskin shows that I've been involved with. Darcy has the perfect palate. She's this sort of big deal, basically food tester. Like she assesses recipes, and because she can like taste the difference between 30% and 31% cocoa in a chocolate recipe, like she's this much sought after person to like fine tune recipes and make sure that stuff is tasting exactly the way that it should. However, she does not have much work ethic. She has no company loyalty. She drinks a lot, although she told me that her drink of choice was iced tea, even though she had talked about having a hangover, which is not normally a symptom of iced tea drinking. But it was Stefanie gave a really interesting performance as Darcy, because at times she was very sort of gruff and like, shut up, that's a dumb question, why are you even bothering me type thing. And at other times she was more engaged, especially with the discussions of like chocolate recipes and different approaches and things. So that sort of dynamic performance worked really well. Moving on to the Capadelli family, one of the two rival chocolate dynasties. There is Patricia and Julia, a mother and daughter couple, played by Kari Williamson as Patricia, the mother, and Jace Beaton as Julia, the daughter. And their chocolate company is very much about innovation, about finding the new thing to do, the next big thing, and their sort of big innovation that they're very proud of is their ultra stable chocolate that's meant to basically last forever, right? So it doesn't melt, it doesn't go bad, it doesn't oxidize or whatever it is, right? So the idea basically is this chocolate will last forever. Like you do not have to eat it within a certain amount of time before it goes bad, as other chocolates do. And It's an interest that became a big sort of talking point in the discussions. And one of the sort of big debates between the two chocolate families, the Capodellis and the Monteberries, was whether or not this was a good innovation, whether or not this was a good thing. And I'm not super interested in business, but I have taught business writing extensively. So I have some background in sort of the theory of business from doing that sort of through osmosis. But it's an interesting sort of question of whether or not this is a practical approach to a business model. So their rival chocolate family is the Monteberries, the three of them. James Monteberry, played by Ryan Gartland, who, again, I don't think I've ever worked with him yet. I probably will in the future, because he's very, very good, and he's been in a lot of Sock and Buskin things, and I've been in a lot of Sock and Buskin things, so I'm sure that we will, not professionally, but amateurly, get to actually work together at some point. So he is the father, the patriarch of this clan, and he is very much about the traditional way of making chocolate. He emphasizes the rich tradition. I tried to get him to tell me how much cash I would find in each individual bar of chocolate, and he refused to give me a hard dollar amount. But hey, you know what? Keep your company secrets, I guess. So there's James, and then there's Frida, played by Tara Kaimi, whom I've worked with before. I actually, I think the first time I worked with her, I directed her in a short play that I was also in. So we had both sort of a, like, director, actor, and co-actors role. And Tara's amazing. She's awesome. She's a great writer. She's very, very interesting as well. And Frida is, I would say, more dedicated to tradition than James is, even though it's a big part of what James talks about. So Frida is a housewife. She's like a socialite. She has an English accent, which of course, means that she's very traditional, because that's how the English are. And she's very much like judgmental, but also in that like sort of charming, aristocratic, like, oh, I'm judging you, but I'm doing it in a British accent. Right. So like, what's her name? The older woman from, Downton Abbey. I can't think of the character or the actor's name off the top of my head, but you know who I mean, right? So it was very much in that sort of vibe. And that's always really fun to interact with, and just sort of like, especially for someone like me who wants to try and sort of push the buttons and like see what I can do to sort of ruffle people. It's cool to see how a character like that reacts, and Tara did really, really well. And then their son, well, okay. This point specifically came up. James's son, Frida's stepson, Roman, was played by Chase Wilson, who, again, I've directed. He's really, really excellent, and I really enjoyed interacting with him. In part because we're both English majors, we're both educators, so like I think there's sort of points of connection that we find quite interesting. And indeed, we sort of talked for a while, or mostly I just talked at Roman, very closely analyzing some of the evidence. But he seemed quite happy to just sit there and listen to me talk about the grammar and mechanics and what it means that there was only one letter capitalized in an entire email and stuff like that. So it was good. I don't know that it was it wasn't productive in terms of me solving the mystery, but that was not my objective, really. Yeah, so again, all of these things, all of this type of show, this whole genre is basically rooted in audience interaction. And so the ways in which people build their characters and the ways in which they respond to the questions is super, super important. And again, for whatever problems it seemed like there was, whatever gaps it seemed like there was in the more scripted part, the audience interaction was excellent. And so Death by Chocolate, really, really good, really, really well done. Definitely an interesting show.